John Gans, Ph.D., former chief speechwriter for the Pentagon, author of The White House Warriors, How the National Security Council Transformed the American Way of War. John, thanks for coming into the show, man.
Thanks so much for having me.
Coming in live. You're making the rounds?
Yeah, I'm having a fun time talking about
Are
the
you
book.
down
There's
there
a
in
lot of-
D.C. as well?
Yeah, so I'm actually heading back to D.C. today. So a book launch with a bunch of folks down in D.C. So it'll be a good party this afternoon. It'll be fun.
Party, that's great.
Yeah.
Describe what you did at the Pentagon.
So I was the chief speechwriter to the Secretary of Defense, which is a fun job. And the Pentagon's, there's no place quite like it. You get to work with some of the best, smartest people in the world, and everybody from the enlisted to the officers to the civilians just come in and want to do a good job for the country. And so it's a great place to write. It's a collaborative environment. And so we wrote speeches for Secretary Carter and Secretary Hagel that were basically given all around the world. So we travel a lot, write a lot, don't sleep a lot, but get to serve our country.
Tell us, who were you with most of who were the defense secretaries?
So
when you were
I
there?
started with Chuck Hagel, and then I continued in with Ash Carter, who was Obama's last Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
So, and I stayed there till 2017, so just as the Trump administration was coming in.
Yeah, wow. And around 9/11, were you around that time? Yeah.
No, I wasn't. I actually lived in New York, though. And
You were up here.
Yeah, so I lived in New York. So I was working at in a communications firm and just out of college, and I actually donated and took a leave to go work for FEMA at Ground Zero. So I was one of the press people at Ground Zero.
Wait, so walk me through that, because we're a block away, man.
Oh, I know.
Were you here? Was your office down here? Or were you in Midtown?
I was in Midtown, so but I had a clear view, so I saw a lot of it. And then a few days after obviously 9/11, the Federal Emergency Management Agency was looking for help, and one of the things they needed, because there was so much interest, obviously, in what was going on, was press people. So they seconded me. They brought me on as sort of a volunteer, really. And I worked for 6 weeks out of a van down here, shooting all the footage, going in, interviewing folks, doing press releases and press conferences right down here. So we spent 6 weeks down here. So it was obviously a terrible moment, but also a fascinating moment in New York history, and got to spend a lot of time working with
How
people.
about the recovery down here when you walk down here now?
It's a
Is it
staggering
unbelievable?
thing. Yeah, it's a staggering thing.
Beautiful,
I mean,
isn't it?
people get depressed and down about the United States sometime, about how it can't do big
Thank
things.
you.
But
Thank
we just
you.
rebuilt
Thank you.
one of the great cities in America, and it is a staggering feat. And we did it without total disruption, and
That's
it's
right.
a beautiful, solid, wonderful thing.
God bless
so
you,
I think it's
man.
an amazing thing to see.
Well, God bless you for saying that. It's right on the money. So we were talking to John Mendez. Is there a deep state down there in Washington? What do you think? Are people consumed with, oh my gosh, President Trump is the president. Oh my gosh, it's going to be the United States is now a reality show. We've got to take him out.
I think there is. I always say there's not a deep state. There's not enough organization in Washington to be this formal, organized deep state with meetings and secret messages and things along those lines.
Oh, come on.
As much as we'd like to, there is a bureaucracy, though, right? And I think for Donald Trump, who came in without a lot of governing experience, a bureaucracy can feel like an organized force because it doesn't always want to do what the president wants to do. I saw it at the Pentagon, even with President Obama. Like, there are moments where there's disagreements, and the bureaucracy is there saying, well, if I just slow this decision down, if I make his life a little bit more difficult. So there's definitely a bureaucracy, and that could feel like a deep state. But I think, as I talk about in the book, the problem with the deep state is not that there is one, because there is one. It's that Americans believe there is one, and that sort of undermines representative
Well, I don't know.
democracy.
Stay with me on that. Do we have the book, by the way? I could show it. We'll put it on the video. It's the White House Warriors. White House Warriors. This is great. Yeah, that's brilliant what you just said. It's not so much a deep state as it is bureaucracy.
Yeah.
But people believe. But it's not really deep state. It's like, isn't it like 3 or 4? And I said to John Mendez, 3 or 4 rogue bad actors that maybe indeed want to take down the president.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I
Tell me
think
something salacious. down
something
there.
salacious, exactly. I mean, what I sort of demonstrate is that everybody in Washington has an opinion, right? And some of them are against Donald Trump, and some of them are for their own policy interests. Like, we're seeing this to a degree with Iran, right? We just had an election, and I think all the polling suggests that Americans don't want another war in the Middle East, right? And I think even Donald Trump has made it clear he doesn't really want a war with Iran. But you have John Bolton in there with a tremendous amount of power, and he is able to basically push the president both with the interpretation of what we're seeing in the world and the ideas that he's suggesting. And so I think what you see is that occasionally it feels as though what the American people want isn't what they get out of Washington. And I think that's certainly true with what Donald Trump wants isn't what he gets out of Washington. Yeah. And so what you have is a very powerful group of people, which I sort of profile, and one of them can do a lot of damage. I went through national security staffers from Truman to Trump. And you see staffers from time to time, whether it's in Vietnam, Iran, Contra, the surge, Afghanistan, who have taken on too much authority and too much power, and they've pushed the White House and pushed the country in the wrong direction.
That can happen out of the Pentagon.
Yeah, for just one person can have a tremendous amount of impact.
Tell me, and I try to be respectful to all the presidents, and certainly to everybody who served the country. And the Iraq War.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I mean, the handling of that. I mean, what did he do well? What did he do poorly?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing you sort of see, and I treat all the presidents pretty fairly in the book. I think it's a hard job, and I think that it's not an easy thing to do to make these giant decisions. But what I think with President Bush, is that he basically took too little authority and pushed too little on the bureaucracy and in the military to ask hard questions, right? Whether it was about the military plans, about the intelligence, things along those lines. He heard what he wanted to hear, didn't push on them. And then what he did on the back end is that he pushed too hard on the surge, right? He pushed and said, this is what I want to do. And it was a courageous decision. But a lot of the military disagreed with it because they said, you're taking your eye off Afghanistan, you're overstretching the military. And I think we're still in Afghanistan today, and I don't think the surge necessarily brought us long-time peace in Iraq. And so what you see is he was probably, in the Goldilocks game, a little too soft and then a little too hard, and didn't exactly get it right. But unfortunately, he presided over two huge wars that cost us trillions of dollars and too many lives, and sort of misled in those.
The book is John Gans, author of the book White House Warriors. He's a chief speechwriter for the Pentagon, author of the White House Warriors. You talked to Dick Cheney, man?
Yeah, I did. I talked to 12 national security advisors, a bunch of other.
Dick Cheney took the interview.
Dick Cheney is hard to interrupt. That's what I like to say.
That's great.
So every time I tried to interrupt, and so he talked to me forever. And so, I mean, what you see in the book is that there are dozens of people who've been serving forever, right? Yeah. So Dick Cheney pops up in like 3 or 4 chapters because he was chief of staff to Gerald Ford, right? He was then Secretary of Defense during the Gulf War. Then he was vice president, right? And he has helped shape both the presidency and American foreign policy for almost 50 years. It's a staggering feat. And there's many other like that. But he had opinions about everything, and was very opinionated about the decision on the surge and how it was the right decision. Even if his hands weren't as deeply in it as they were in the early decisions on Iraq, because he had sort of gotten pushed aside a little bit. He definitely sort of appreciated that the staff was there pushing for it.
And they always say, and I have to say this because people are listening and they're going to say, Joe didn't ask the question. Was that a war, an oil war that Cheney started, that he was in control, that W was just a puppet? I mean, did you get any sense of that?
I mean, I didn't get a sense that there was anything. The sort of rumors and the sort of phenomenal sort of approach to it probably isn't true. There's some truth, I think, to both his overbearing sense, and especially in the first term, when you saw these wars started. But like we were just talking about with 9/11, I don't think we went to war because of oil. I think we went to war because the country was fed up and scared and wanted to see change in the Middle East. I don't think anybody was thinking about oil on September 12th, and I don't think they were thinking about oil with Iraq.
Well, you interviewed 12 national security advisors for this book. How close are we, before we let you go, John Gans, to war with Iran, do you think?
I think that we aren't as close to war with Iran as we are probably close to John Bolton, the national security advisor, no longer having a job. I sort of see
I'm the only guy. I love John Bolton. When he comes on the radio, he's such a great guest. He talks in sound bites, in great sound bites, and he's very, very smart. Is he? But he's a hawk. I mean, so you're telling me that?
Yeah, but I think he's he's very smart, very good, a considerable public servant and bureaucrat who knows how to get things
curious done. Mustache.
For sure. And a great mustache if you're into that sort of thing. The challenge with him is that right now he seems out of step with the president, and that's not where you're going to last as national security advisor for very long. And I think my sense of it is that if Trump thinks you're trying to be an opportunist, which I think John Bolton is his entire career, I'm going to take advantage.
You think so?
I think he's going to get frustrated with somebody trying to push him in a direction he doesn't want to go.
Well, we welcome John Bolton to the show, just to be clear. This is a great book. It's called White House Warriors, How the National Security Council Transformed the America Way of War. John, you're very kind. You're a PhD, by the way. He's a smart guy right here. Where are you from originally?
I'm actually from Jersey. Yeah, you know, see, that's from South Jersey. So I was born in Philly, but down at the shore, Brigantine, New Jersey.
Yeah, you're from Brigantine? That's
I am.
gorgeous down there.
I know.
You live down in D.C. now?
So no, we actually just moved up to Philly. So I live in Haddonfield. So I moved back to Jersey.
Haddonfield's beautiful, man.
I know. So we're great. We're raising 2 sons in Haddonfield, me and my wife. And my wife works at the Children's Hospital in Philly, and I work at
Which
Penn.
is good. Chop is great. Oh, my gosh.
And I get to go down to the shore every now and
There's
again.
the
So
Jersey
we're heading there
boy.
this weekend. You know,
John Gans, the name of the book is White House Warriors. Thank you for coming in, John. Fascinating conversation,
Thank
man.
you. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Episcopal.